The crystal champagne flute trembled in my hand as I watched my mother-in-law's lips curl into that familiar smirk. 7 years of marriage to her precious son, and I still couldn't shake the chill that ran down my spine whenever she looked at me that way. My name is Jennifer, and I've spent nearly a decade being the family disappointment, the woman who dared marry into the illustrious Willis family without the proper pedigree or bank account to match. I simply can't wait for next month's anniversary party, Yvonne announced, swirling her wine with practiced elegance. I have the most wonderful surprise planned. The dining room fell silent. Even the gentle clink of sterling silver against fine china seemed to hold its breath. I caught my husband Landon's questioning glance from across the table, but he quickly looked away. He always looked away. "Mother, we agreed no surprises this year," Landon said, his voice carrying that slight tremor it always did when he confronted her. "Jennifer and I wanted something simple." Yvonne's laugh tinkled like breaking glass. "Oh, darling, nothing about our family is simple. You know that." Her eyes locked onto mine. "Isn't that right, Jennifer?" I forced a smile. "Of course, Yvonne. Though sometimes simple can be refreshing." Max, the family's CEO, cleared his throat. "Speaking of refreshing, the quarterly numbers are looking exceptional. Jennifer, I noticed the marketing suggestions you sent over actually." Now, Yvonne cut in. "Let's not bore everyone with business talk. Besides, I'm sure Jennifer has enough on her plate managing the household." She paused, eyeing my barely touched plate. Though perhaps not as well as one might hope. Hope, my best friend and tonight's invited guest, shifted uncomfortably beside me. Under the table, she squeezed my hand, our secret signal that I needed to keep my cool. "Actually," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart, "I've been quite busy with several personal projects." "How lovely," Yvonne cooed. "It's so important to have hobbies. Speaking of which, you remember Chelsea, don't you? Maxwell's niece? She's doing remarkable things in corporate law now. She'll be attending the anniversary party." The way she emphasized Chelsea's name made my stomach turn. I'd met her once. Young, beautiful, and exactly the kind of woman Yvonne had always wanted for her son. "Chelsea?" Landon frowned. "I haven't seen her since we were kids." "Oh, she's grown into quite the accomplished woman," Yvonne beamed. "Harvard Law, summer home in the Hamptons, family money, of course. The kind of connections that could really benefit our family's future." I set down my glass before I could crush it. "The party is to celebrate our marriage, Yvonne. 7 years of it." "Yes, 7 long years," she mused, dabbing her lips with her napkin. "Time does have a way of clarifying things, doesn't it?" Hope cleared her throat. "Jennifer, didn't you want to show me that painting in the study? The new one?" I grabbed the lifeline. "Yes, actually. Would you all excuse us for a moment?" We barely made it to the study before Hope spun around. "She's planning something big." "I know." I sank into the leather armchair, my hands shaking. The way she kept talking about Chelsea, about the future. "You have to tell Landon about your plan," Hope insisted, "before this party, before whatever she's plotting." I shook my head. "Not yet. The acquisition isn't final. If word gets out too soon..." "Jen, she's trying to replace you, with some corporate Barbie who probably color codes her sock drawer." "Let her try." I stood up, smoothing my dress. "Everything's already in motion. In exactly 4 weeks, Yvonne Willis is going to learn what it feels like to be the one without power." Hope's eyes widened. "You're really going through with it?" "You know what she said to me last Christmas? That I should be grateful they let me marry Landon at all. That some people just aren't meant for certain circles." I walked to the window, watching the city lights flicker below. "Well, I'm about to buy my way into every circle she holds dear." "Jennifer?" Landon's voice carried from the hallway. "Mother's asking for us." I turned to Hope, my jaw set. Time to go back to playing the dutiful daughter-in-law. For now. As we walked back to the dining room, Yvonne's voice drifted out, discussing seating arrangements with surprising animation. I caught the words head table and special announcement. Let her plan her perfect party. Let her think she's finally found a way to push me out. In 4 weeks, I wouldn't just crash her carefully orchestrated celebration. I'd own it. Literally. I just hoped Landon would understand why I had to do it this way. Why 7 years of subtle humiliation and carefully crafted exclusion had led me to this moment. Because one way or another, this anniversary would mark the end of Yvonne Willis's reign over our lives. And the beginning of mine. The paperwork looks solid, Eugene said, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses as he spread documents across his mahogany desk. But Jennifer, are you absolutely certain about this? The family has trusted me as their attorney for 30 years. I leaned forward, my designer blazer, a recent splurge I'd finally allowed myself, crinkling slightly. That's exactly why I came to you, Eugene. You know every skeleton in their closet. He shuffled uncomfortably. The acquisition is legitimate. Your shell company's offer is more than fair, but the deception involved... Deception? I pulled out my phone, scrolling through saved screenshots. Like when Yvonne tried to have my prenup modified without my knowledge 3 years ago? The same prenup you refused to alter because it was, as you put it, ethically questionable? Eugene's face flushed. That was different. Was it? I slid the final contract across his desk. Sign as witness, Eugene, or I'll find someone who will. The door opened and Hope burst in, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. Sorry I'm late. Traffic was insane. She paused, reading the room. Did I miss the fun part? Perfect timing, I said. Eugene was just about to sign. Hope dropped into the chair beside me, pulling out her tablet. While you finish up here, you need to see these numbers. The tech division's value is even higher than we thought. Your little startup didn't just succeed, Jen. It's about to become a major player. I allowed myself a small smile. For 3 years, I'd been building my company in secret, starting with a small inheritance from my grandmother. While Yvonne thought I was taking cooking classes and attending charity luncheons, I was actually securing investors and developing revolutionary software. Eugene's pen scratched across the paper. There, it's done. He looked up at me, his expression grave. The family will know within days that someone's buying their shares. Once the acquisition is complete, there's no going back. Good. I gathered the papers, sliding them into my briefcase. Because I'm done going backward. Hope waited until we were in the elevator before squealing. I can't believe we pulled this off. From that tiny office above my garage to this. She grabbed my hands. You're about to own one of the largest tech companies on the East Coast. We're not celebrating yet, I warned, but I couldn't help grinning. First, we need to... The elevator doors opened and I froze. Landon stood in the lobby, deep in conversation with Max. Quick, Hope whispered. Act natural. Jennifer? Landon looked surprised. What are you doing here? Hope needed to drop off some documents for her divorce. I lied smoothly. I came for moral support. Max nodded sympathetically. Nasty business divorce. Speaking of business, Landon, we should finish our discussion about those board changes your mother's suggesting. My ears perked up. Board changes? Nothing concrete, Landon said quickly. Just some restructuring ideas. Mother thinks that it's time for fresh perspectives. Max finished. Though between us, I'm not sure about her timing. The company's doing better than ever. Hope clutched my arm. We should really get going. Lots of paperwork to handle. As we hurried out, I heard Max say, You know, your wife's got quite a head for business. That marketing proposal last month was brilliant. Maybe we should consider... The rest of his words were cut off by the closing doors. Outside, I finally let out the breath I'd been holding. That was close, Hope said. But did you hear that? They're planning board changes right before the takeover? That can't be a coincidence. I flagged down a taxi. No, it can't. Yvonne's planning something big for that anniversary party, and now she's messing with the company structure? I pulled out my phone. Call Eugene. Tell him to expedite everything. I want the acquisition complete before that party. What about Landon? Are you ever going to tell him? I watched the city blur past the taxi window, remembering the way he'd looked away at dinner. the way he always looked away. He'll know soon enough. They all will. And if he doesn't understand? If he takes their side? The question hit me like a punch to the gut. Then I'll have lost my husband, I said quietly. But I'll have kept my dignity. And maybe, just maybe, I'll have earned his respect. Hope squeezed my hand. For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. Sometimes the only way to fix a broken system is to break it completely. My phone buzzed. A message from Yvonne about final party arrangements. Another buzz. Eugene confirming the paperwork was being processed. 2 weeks until the acquisition would be complete. 3 weeks until the party. After 7 years of smiling through subtle jabs and calculated exclusion, my patience was finally about to pay off. I just hoped the price wouldn't be too high. The Willis corporate headquarters buzzed with unusual energy as decorators transformed the top-floor event space for tomorrow's pre-party board meeting. I lingered near the service entrance, watching Yvonne direct workers with military precision. The flowers go there. No, not those ones. She snapped at a nervous-looking florist. The pink roses are for tomorrow. The white ones are for next week's main event. Everything okay? Max appeared beside me, making me jump. You look lost in thought. Just admiring Yvonne's attention to detail. He chuckled. That's one way to put it. Listen, Jennifer, got a minute? There's something I've been meaning to discuss. My heart raced as I followed him to his office. Had he discovered something? The acquisition was nearly complete, but one wrong move now could ruin everything. Close the door, he said, settling behind his desk. I'm worried about Yvonne. I blinked. Worried? She's been making strange moves lately, calling emergency board meetings, suggesting radical leadership changes. He rubbed his temples. This morning, she asked me to transfer significant company shares to a trust she's creating. Did she say why? Something about securing the family's future. But the timing feels off. We're more profitable than ever, thanks in part to those marketing strategies you suggested. I forced a neutral expression. Have you talked to Landon about this? Tried to, but you know how he gets when it comes to his mother. Max leaned forward. Actually, I wanted to run something by you. How would you feel about taking a more active role in the company? A knock interrupted before I could respond. Landon poked his head in. Mother's looking for you, Max. Something about the seating arrangements? God help me, Max muttered, standing. Think about what I said, Jennifer. We could use someone with your insight. As he left, Landon studied my face. What was that about? Nothing important, I said quickly. Just party details. You've been different lately, he said softly. Distant. Is everything okay? For a moment, I wanted to tell him everything. About the company I'd built, the acquisition, his mother's manipulation. But then Yvonne's voice carried down the hallway. Landon, there you are. Chelsea just arrived. Come say hello. His face lit up. Chelsea's here? I haven't seen her in ages. My stomach twisted. Go ahead. Don't keep them waiting. Once alone, I slipped into the empty boardroom next door. Through the thin wall, I could hear voices from the event space. The prodigal daughter returns. Yvonne's voice dripped with warmth she'd never shown me. Doesn't Chelsea look stunning, Landon? Harvard Law certainly agrees with her. You look great, Landon agreed. How long are you staying? Through next week's party, at least, Chelsea replied. Yvonne has big plans for the celebration. Yes, Yvonne said. Very big plans. Max, darling, there you are. We need to discuss those share transfers immediately. Their voices moved away, but I stayed frozen in place. Share transfers. Chelsea's extended stay. The way Yvonne emphasized big plans. My phone buzzed. A text from Hope. Eugene says acquisition paperwork is ready. We're ahead of schedule. You sure about this? Another voice drifted through the wall. Max, speaking in low tones. I don't like it, Eugene. These rushed changes, the secret meetings. Something's not right. Mrs. Willis is within her legal rights. Eugene responded, sounding tired. Though perhaps the timing is unfortunate. Unfortunate? The company's facing its biggest transition in years, and she's focused on some mystery announcement at a party? I'd heard enough. Stepping into the hallway, I nearly collided with Chelsea. Jennifer? She smiled warmly. I was hoping to run into you. Yvonne's told me so much. Has she? I matched her smile. Funny, she's told me almost nothing about you. Oh, you'll learn everything soon enough. She touched my arm. I hope we can be friends. After all, we're both so invested in this family's future. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed again. Hope. Emergency, call now. Excuse me, I said, already walking away. I need to take this. In the privacy of the elevator, I called Hope. They're moving up the board meeting, she said without preamble. To tomorrow morning, Eugene just told me. What? Why? Something about voting on major structural changes before the party. Jen, if they reorganize before the acquisition is complete, they can't. I pressed the lobby button harder than necessary. Call Eugene, tell him we're executing tonight. I don't care what it takes. Are you sure? Once we move, there's no going back. Through the closing elevator doors, I caught one last glimpse of Landon laughing at something Chelsea said, Yvonne watching them with satisfied eyes. I'm sure, I said. It's time to end this game. The emergency board meeting felt like a powder keg waiting to explode. I sat in my usual corner spot, watching board members file in while Yvonne held court at the head of the table, Chelsea conspicuously placed at her right hand. Before we begin, Yvonne announced, I'd like to introduce Chelsea properly. She'll be joining us as a legal consultant for our upcoming transitions. Max shifted uncomfortably. Transitions we haven't voted on yet. Mere formalities. Yvonne waved her hand dismissively. Now, regarding the share transfers? The boardroom door burst open. Eugene hurried in, clutching a stack of papers, his face flushed. I apologize for the interruption, but there's an urgent matter. It can wait. Yvonne cut him off. We have important... It cannot wait, Eugene insisted, his voice unusually firm. The company has received a binding acquisition offer. The room erupted in murmurs. Landon's head snapped up from his phone. What? Impossible. Yvonne spat. Who would dare? A tech consortium. Eugene continued, distributing documents. They've already secured majority shareholder support. The deal is, effectively, done. I watched the color drain from Yvonne's face as she scanned the papers. This is a complete takeover, Max finished, whistling low. And at these numbers, it's a damn good offer. But the timing, Chelsea interjected, mask of sweetness slipping. Surely we can delay. I'm afraid not, Eugene said. The paperwork was finalized last night. All that remains is the formal announcement. Landon hadn't moved, staring at the acquisition documents. Mother, what's going on? Nothing, Yvonne snapped. This is clearly a mistake. A hostile takeover attempt that will squash immediately. Chelsea, call your firm. Actually, I stood up, my heart pounding but my voice steady. It's not hostile at all. The majority shareholders voted quite willingly. Isn't that right, Eugene? The room fell silent. Every head turned toward me. Jennifer? Landon's voice cracked. What do you know about this? She knows nothing, Yvonne snarled. She's just the wife who built a tech empire right under your nose. I finished. While you were planning parties and arranging marriages, I was arranging something else entirely. Chelsea's perfectly manicured hand crumpled the papers. You're bluffing. I pulled out my phone, projecting my company's portfolio onto the boardroom screen. 3 years, 15 patents, over 200 employees, and as of last night, majority ownership of this company. No, Yvonne whispered. No, no, no. Yes. I turned to face her directly. Did you really think I'd just stand by while you tried to replace me? While you plan to announce my husband's new future at our anniversary party? Landon stood so quickly his chair toppled backward. What? Chelsea at least had the decency to look embarrassed. Landon, I can explain. Don't bother. I cut in. The papers tell the whole story. Your law firm's involvement, the trust fund Yvonne was creating in your name, the planned announcement at the party. Mother? Landon's voice was deadly quiet. Is this true? Yvonne's composure cracked. I was trying to protect you, to secure your future with someone worthy of this family. By ambushing me at my anniversary party? He turned to Chelsea. And you agreed to this? It wasn't like that, Chelsea protested. Yvonne said you were unhappy, that you wanted. What I want, Landon interrupted, has never mattered to any of you, has it? Max cleared his throat. Perhaps we should focus on the acquisition. Yes, I said. Let's. As new majority shareholder, I'm calling an emergency vote. First order of business, restructuring the board. You can't do this, Yvonne hissed. I already have. I distributed more documents. You'll find your severance packages more than generous. Chelsea, I assume you can find your own way out. Landon, Yvonne pleaded. Stop her. But Landon was staring at me like he'd never seen me before. All this time, you were building a company? Yes. And you didn't tell me because I needed to prove something. I met his gaze. To them, to you, to myself, the room held its breath. 7 years of marriage balanced on this moment. Finally, Landon smiled. Well, I guess that makes you my boss now. Actually, I couldn't help smiling back. I'm everyone's boss now. Yvonne slammed her hands on the table. This isn't over. Oh, but it is. I gathered my things. Board meeting adjourned. And Yvonne? Don't worry about the anniversary party. I'll handle the arrangements from here. As I walked out, head high, I heard Max mutter, Now that's what I call a hostile takeover. For the first time in 7 years, I felt truly, completely free. The silence in our penthouse was deafening. Landon hadn't spoken a word during the car ride home, and now he stood by the window, drink in hand, watching the city lights flicker below. Say something. I finally broke the silence. Please, he turned, his expression unreadable. 3 years. You spent 3 years building an empire in secret. I couldn't tell you. I started, but he cut me off. No, let me finish. He set down his glass. 3 years of watching my mother belittle you, of me saying nothing. Of course you couldn't tell me. I hadn't expected that. You're not angry? Angry? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. I'm furious. At my mother, at myself, at this whole mess. He ran a hand through his hair. But at you? How can I be angry when you did exactly what I should have done years ago? The doorbell rang, interrupting the moment. Hope burst in before I could answer it. Your phones are blowing up. She waved her tablet. The business news is going crazy. Unknown tech entrepreneur acquires industry giant. Mystery woman takes down family empire. You're trending. Hope, Landon said quietly. Could we have a moment? Oh, right. Sorry. She backed toward the door. But Jen, call me later. Yvonne's already making moves. After she left, Landon poured another drink. Making moves? Care to explain? She's called 3 different law firms, I admitted, trying to challenge the acquisition, but it won't work. Everything's legal. That's not what I meant. He faced me. What moves is she making against us? Against you? My phone buzzed, a text from Eugene. Yvonne attempting to freeze family assets, trying to block access to anniversary party venue. She's trying to shut me out. I showed him the message, like she always has. Landon's jaw tightened. The party's still happening? It has to. Everyone who's anyone in the business world will be there. The perfect place to announce the new company direction. And humiliate my mother. I met his gaze. Would that be so wrong? After what she planned to do to us? He was quiet for a long moment. You know what hurts the most? Not the secret company, not the takeover. It's that I never saw it. Any of it. My mother's manipulation, your potential. I was blind to all of it. You saw what you wanted to see, I said softly. We all did. The doorbell rang again. This time it was Max. Sorry to interrupt. He looked between us awkwardly. But Jennifer, we need to talk strategy. The board members are split. Some are calling for emergency meetings. Others are threatening to resign. Let them, I said. We'll rebuild with people who share our vision. Our vision? Max raised an eyebrow. Unless you're planning to resign too? He grinned. Are you kidding? This is the most excitement we've had in years. I'm in. Good. I pulled out my laptop. Because I need your help planning the party. Jennifer? Landon interrupted. Before we do this, are you sure? Once we announce everything publicly, there's no going back. No reconciliation with my mother. Landon, I touched his arm. Your mother was going to announce your future marriage to another woman at our anniversary party. I think we're past reconciliation. Max choked on his drink. She was going to what? Ask Chelsea, I said dryly, though she might be busy updating her resume. My phone buzzed again. Hope sending security camera footage from the office. Yvonne was clearing out her office, Chelsea helping her pack files. They're not going quietly, Max observed. Good. I closed my laptop. Because neither am I. Landon wrapped an arm around my waist, surprising me. Then let's do this right. Make it a party they'll never forget. You're with me? I searched his face. I should have been with you from the start. He kissed my forehead. Better late than never. Max cleared his throat. As touching as this is, we have a crisis to manage. The press is demanding statements, shareholders are panicking. Let them panic, I said. By this time next week, they'll understand exactly why this change had to happen. My phone lit up with another message. Yvonne. You have no idea what you've started. I showed it to Landon, who took the phone and typed a reply. Actually, Mother, for once, we know exactly what we're doing. As Max began outlining damage control strategies, I watched my husband. Really watched him. For the first time in our marriage, he stood tall, unburdened by his mother's expectations. Sometimes you have to tear everything down to build something better. I just hoped we were building something stronger than what we'd destroyed. But first, we had a party to plan. What do you mean my access has been denied? I stared at the security guard blocking the entrance to the plaza's grand ballroom. The anniversary party was due to start in less than an hour, and guests were already arriving. I'm sorry, ma'am. He checked his tablet again. But Mrs. Yvonne specifically updated the list this morning. You're not on it. Hope grabbed my arm. She can't do this. You own the company. The venue contract is still in her name, I realized, watching through the glass doors as Yvonne directed caterers inside. She caught my eye and smiled, giving a small wave. My phone buzzed. Landon. Stuck in traffic. Mother's doing? Your mother's locked me out of our own anniversary party, I texted back. Of all the petty, vindictive... Hope stopped mid-rant as Chelsea walked past us into the ballroom, not even trying to hide her smirk. That's it. I pulled out my phone. Max, we need that backup plan. Now. 10 minutes later, Max arrived with Eugene in tow, both looking harried. The venue won't budge, Max reported. Yvonne's threatened to sue them if they let you in without her approval. Which she technically can do, Eugene added. The contract... I don't care about the contract. I cut him off. This is my anniversary party. My company announcement. I'm not letting her win. A commotion at the entrance drew our attention. Landon had arrived and he looked furious. Where is she? He stormed past the security guard who didn't dare stop him. Mother. I followed in his wake before anyone could object, Hope and Max close behind. The ballroom was stunning. Crystal chandeliers, white roses everywhere, exactly as Yvonne had planned. Except now she stood center stage, champagne in hand, Chelsea at her side. Landon, darling, Yvonne called out. Just in time. We were about to begin. Begin what? He demanded. Humiliating my wife? Destroying our marriage? Guests turned to watch, phones already recording. This was exactly what Yvonne wanted. A scene, a scandal, something to discredit me. I'm simply protecting our family's interests, Yvonne said smoothly. After that hostile takeover. Hostile? I laughed, drawing everyone's attention. Like plotting to announce my husband's new engagement at our anniversary party? Gasps rippled through the crowd. Chelsea took a step back, but Yvonne held her ground. Security, she called out. This woman is trespassing. 2 guards approached, but Max stepped forward. Actually, as acting CEO, I can confirm Mrs. Jennifer is exactly where she should be. Acting CEO? Yvonne's voice rose. You're taking her side? I'm taking the side of progress, Max answered. Something you might try sometime. The guards hesitated, looking between us. Oh, for heaven's sake, Yvonne snapped. Fine, stay. Make a fool of yourself. But this is still my party, and I have an announcement to make. She turned to address the crowd, but Landon grabbed the microphone first. Yes, Mother. Let's make announcements. Let's tell everyone how you tried to manipulate my marriage. How you plan to ambush us tonight. How you've spent 7 years trying to drive away the best thing that ever happened to this family. The best thing? Yvonne scoffed. She stole our company. No. I stepped forward. I built something better than your company. Something that will actually make a difference in the world. And I did it while you were too busy planning my replacement to notice. Hope appeared with a laptop, connecting it to the ballroom's projection system. My company's portfolio appeared on the massive screens. The innovations, the patents, the future plans. Ladies and gentlemen, I addressed the stunned crowd. Welcome to the future of Willis Technologies, a future built on merit, not manipulation, on innovation, not inheritance. Phones flashed as reporters in the crowd started taking notes. This wasn't the scandal Yvonne had planned. It was better. You can't do this, Yvonne whispered, but her voice shook. I already have. I took Landon's hand. Happy anniversary to us. And Mother, you might want to check your email. Your resignation letter is waiting. Chelsea slipped away through the crowd as Yvonne stood frozen, her perfect party crumbling around her. Well, Max raised his glass. I believe this calls for a toast. To the new CEO of Willis Technologies, and to karma. The crowd raised their glasses, the mood shifting from scandal to celebration. Landon pulled me close, whispering, I love you, and I'm so damn proud of you. Yvonne's face had gone from red to white. She grabbed her purse and headed for the exit, pausing only to hiss, This isn't over. Actually, Mother, Landon called after her. For once it is. As the party resumed around us, now with a very different energy, Hope squeezed my hand. Worth getting locked out for? I watched Yvonne's retreating back, 7 years of powerlessness finally lifting from my shoulders. Worth every second. The morning after the party, I sat at what used to be Yvonne's desk, watching the sun rise over the city. The headlines were everywhere. Tech's newest power player. Family drama leads to corporate coup. Daughter-in-law's sweet revenge. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. Max entered, carrying 2 coffee cups. The vultures are circling, he announced, handing me a cup. Every news outlet in the country wants an interview. The shareholders are demanding meetings, and 3 competing companies have already reached out about potential mergers. Let them wait, I said, pulling up the company's internal messaging system. We have more important things to handle first. The mass email? Are you sure about this? Every employee deserves to know where they stand. I hit send, and thousands of notifications went out across the company. Within minutes, my phone started ringing. Hope burst in, tablet in hand. It's working. The employee forums are exploding. People are crying at their desks. Happy tears. I smiled, remembering what I'd written. Full benefits for all employees, regardless of position. Parental leave doubled. Pay equity reviews. On-site childcare. Everything Yvonne had dismissed as unnecessary coddling. Mrs. Jennifer? My assistant poked her head in. The board members are arriving for the emergency meeting. Show them in. The boardroom filled quickly. Some faces were nervous, others excited. A few chairs sat conspicuously empty, Yvonne's supporters who'd resigned in protest. Thank you all for coming. I stood at the head of the table. I know change is scary. Scary? One of the older board members interrupted. You've upended decades of tradition. Traditions that weren't working. Landon spoke up from his seat. Or have you forgotten last quarter's innovation rankings? The numbers don't lie, Max added, distributing reports. We've been stagnating while smaller companies, like Jennifer's, have been revolutionizing the industry. Speaking of numbers, I pressed a button and new projections filled the screens. These are our growth forecasts under the new structure. Notice anything? The room fell silent as they studied the data. Even the skeptics looked impressed. This is ambitious, someone finally said. It's necessary, I corrected. We're not just changing leadership. We're changing culture, starting with this. I revealed the next slide, a complete reorganization chart. Women and minorities in key positions. Young innovators promoted. Old guard redistributed or retired. You can't just... Another protest began. Actually, I can, but I won't. I smiled. Because every person in this room has 48 hours to prove why they deserve to be part of our future. Show me your value, not your voting shares. The door burst open. Eugene rushed in, looking flustered. Jennifer, we have a situation. Yvonne's filed an injunction. Already handled. Hope interrupted, waving her tablet. The judge threw it out 10 minutes ago. Apparently, he's not a fan of frivolous lawsuits from disgraced executives. My phone buzzed. A text from Chelsea. Can we talk? Privately? Send her up, I told my assistant. To the board, I added, meeting adjourned. You have 48 hours. Make them count. As the room cleared, Chelsea entered. Gone was the polished corporate lawyer. She looked tired, human. I'm sorry, she said immediately. I never meant... Yvonne said Landon was unhappy, that the company needed saving. I didn't know... Save it. I cut her off. You're a brilliant lawyer, Chelsea. Too brilliant to be someone else's pawn. She blinked. What? I'm offering you a choice. Leave with Yvonne, chase her vendetta. Or stay, head our new legal department, and actually make a difference. You'd trust me? After everything? Trust is earned, like respect. I handed her a contract. Your choice. She stared at the paper for a long moment. Then, straightening her shoulders, she pulled out a pen. Smart choice, Landon said from the doorway. He'd been watching silently. Landon, Chelsea started. No apologies needed. Just do better. After she left, Landon pulled me into his arms. You know Mother will keep fighting. Let her try. We've got something she never had. What's that? People who actually believe in what we're doing. My phone buzzed again, Yvonne's number. I declined the call. The press is waiting downstairs, Hope reminded me. Ready to face the cameras? I looked around what was now my office, my company, my future. Actually, I said, I have a better idea. Max, call a company-wide meeting. All employees, all levels. It's time they heard from their new CEO directly. And Yvonne? Hope asked. She can watch it on the news like everyone else. For the first time in 7 years, I didn't care what Yvonne thought. I had a company to run, a culture to change, and a future to build. And this was just the beginning. The autumn breeze carried the scent of coffee from the new employee cafe as I crossed the renovated courtyard of our corporate headquarters. Workers lounged on modern benches, laptops open, collaborating freely, exactly as I'd envisioned. Mrs. Jennifer. A young programmer waved. The new maternal leave policy changed my life. I can actually see my baby grow up. I smiled, remembering Yvonne's words. Sentiment has no place in business. Inside, Hope met me at the elevator. Ready for this? Is anyone ever ready to face their mother-in-law in court? The elevator opened to reveal Max and Chelsea, both clutching legal briefs. She's already there, Chelsea reported, with 3 lawyers and a PR team. Of course she is. I straightened my jacket. Let's end this. The courthouse buzzed with reporters. As we entered, I spotted Landon already seated in the front row. He stood when he saw me, straightening his tie, the one I'd given him on our first anniversary. Mother's asking for one last meeting, he said quietly, before the judge arrives. I nodded. Where? Conference room B. She's waiting. Inside, Yvonne sat alone, looking smaller somehow without her usual entourage. She'd aged in the past few months, the stress showing in new lines around her eyes. Come to gloat? She asked. No. I sat across from her. Come to end this. End this? She laughed bitterly. You stole my company, my son, my legacy. I built something better than your legacy, I interrupted. Have you seen the quarterly reports? Our innovation rate has tripled. Employee satisfaction is at record highs, even the stock price. Numbers, she spat. That's all you care about? Actually, I pulled out my phone, showing her our company's social media feed. I care about people, like Sarah in accounting, who can finally afford her son's medical treatment, or Miguel in tech, whose green energy initiative is revolutionizing our carbon footprint, or enough. She slammed her hand on the table. What do you want? For you to see what I've always seen, that this company could be more than just a family empire. It could make a real difference. And my son? Was he just part of your master plan? Mother. Landon spoke from the doorway. I hadn't heard him enter. You know better than that. Do I? Her voice cracked. I don't know anything anymore. I reached into my briefcase, pulling out a document. Yes, you do. You know this lawsuit is pointless. You know we're doing good work, and you know I'm offering you a choice. She stared at the paper. What is this? A consulting position. Advisory only, no executive power. But your experience, your connections, they could still benefit the company, if you're willing to work with us instead of against us. Why would you offer me anything? Because unlike you, I don't believe in destroying people to get ahead. I stood. Your choice, Yvonne. Keep fighting and lose everything, or help us build something better than either of us imagined. The silence stretched. Finally, she picked up the document, reading carefully. The child care center, she said suddenly. The one you're building on the East Campus. It needs better security protocols. I know. I smiled slightly. That's exactly the kind of insight we could use. She looked at Landon, then back at me. Slowly, she reached for a pen. If I sign this, she said, I want one thing in return. Name it. Sunday dinners with my son and my daughter-in-law. Landon squeezed my hand. I nodded. Deal. Outside, reporters clamored as we emerged together. Chelsea quickly addressed them. All parties have reached an amicable agreement. No further comments. Back at the office, Hope was waiting with champagne. To new beginnings? To family, Landon corrected, wrapping an arm around me. The ones we're born with, and the ones we build. My phone buzzed. A message from Max. East Campus childcare plans on your desk. Yvonne's already made notes. Think this will work? Hope asked quietly. I watched through my office window as Yvonne spoke with our design team, gesturing animatedly about security cameras. 7 years of warfare, ending not with destruction, but with possibility. It has to, I said, because some things are more important than winning. Like family? Landon asked. Like proving that success doesn't have to come at someone else's expense. I turned to face my husband. Like showing that sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's building something so amazing that your enemies want to be part of it. Speaking of building, Hope grinned. Wait until you see the new innovation lab designs. Your mother-in-law actually had some brilliant suggestions. I laughed. Of course she did. She's family after all. And for the first time, those words felt completely true.